Hey everybody, it's Doug here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to a new playthrough. I was going back through all the videos I've done in the past few years, and I like to get at least an annual play or two in for you all of one of my all-time favorites, Victory Point Games game, Darkest Night. And I think this game just has super tight mechanics. It's just a lot of fun to play. It is cooperative. You do always have to play 4 characters, so that can be challenging for some people. But it is such a simple, mechanically simple yet very deep game. I just enjoy it immensely. And I picked a few random characters for today. I'd just like to randomize it. I think I got a group that I don't know how well they're going to do, frankly. This group of heroes I think might be a little too... I don't have a lot of power behind them. There's not a lot of heavy hitters. We'll see if the subtlety of these characters will work. One thing I always save one of the last bits, a couple bits of setup for when I start. So we'll get to that in just a second. But I did want to share always that these trays. Now, if you have the second edition box, these Chessex trays that you can see here, I don't remember the model of them, but they fit, like when you close them up, you just flip the flap over and they close. They're wonderful. You flip the flap underneath to store them. You can see I have all my blights there perfectly stored, and it sits just cleanly on the top of the inside of the box in the second edition box. Like they fit perfectly, and you don't. And it reduces your setup time immensely because all you got to do is take them out and open them up. All the blights are already organized. They're sorted by alphabetical order and everything, and then a lot of your major tokens are just right in here, and you can just get them out. It's really, really handy to have this. So if you have Darkest Night, I highly recommend getting these. You can find them on Amazon or any place else. They're basically, again, I don't remember the model number. It's printed on it, but it's too hard to read because it's just raised plastic. But again, they're just thin trays that flip over. They're token trays for war games, really, but they're fantastic for this game. So with that being said, we're going to do a couple things. I'm going to do the final setup of the board. I'm also going to introduce our characters, probably in the reverse order of that. And we'll talk to our characters first and their powers. And I'm just going to say, I did see, I scouted around online. I saw on eBay and the Board Game Geek shop that there are copies of this out there. Though I would imagine that they get pretty pricey and they're kind of hard to get. This game is not actively in print or circulated anymore, but I cannot recommend it highly enough, especially if you enjoy cooperative games that kind of weave a great story while at the same time this one being mechanically tight as well. So let's get started, talk about our characters. And there, by the way, I think there's 26 or 27 characters in the game, and it does come with a compendium that tells you all about each one of the strengths and weaknesses of all the different characters, and it talks about them a little bit in detail. And I recommend that I'm not going to read all this, there's a ton of information here, but it kind of tells you how this character plays. And each character plays different, and I mean not just a little different, they play pretty different even though the mechanics are fairly simple. So let's talk about our first character. It's going to be the Ranger. Now all characters start with a deck of cards, of which there are 5 in there. I think it's 5 with the Darkest Night 2nd edition. They had an extra card if you kickstarted. I don't remember if they're in every one or not, but these ones with these symbols up here are the ones that are part of your starting deck, and you're going to pick 3 of them to start with as your skills. Now, each character has 2 stats. They have a grace stat, and then they have a secrecy stat. What's interesting about that is, unlike some games where you think, well, he's got 5 hit points. Well, technically, yes, but thematically, no. Thematically, he's been given grace by the powers of good, the gods of good, that are trying to overcome the necromancer that's swept the land and conquered everything already. There's a last bastion of hope in this monastery, this single monastery that's bathed in the light of their god. And everybody who's chosen and anointed as a hero to go try and destroy the necromancer, one final attempt to see if they can free the land of his evil grip and the blights he puts on the land, is grace. Your grace means you died, but through the grace of God you come back. Right, so it's cool thematically. I think it's better. It kind of feels a little better to hit points sometimes because, you know, if you are attacked by a monster, you lose, you die, right? But in the case of this, God brings you back. Now, he's got 3 starting powers. Now, I'll tell you kind of why I picked these. There's some synergies as well, right? So his first one's a tactic. Now, a tactic means you can just use it. Now, there are blights in the game that will prevent you from using tactics, but basically a tactic is just something that's used. And it says fight with 3 dice. If the highest die equals the target number, you both succeed and fail at the roll. That means you have to suffer the consequences. What that means is that my target number is 4, and I roll 3 dice, and I get, because I'm shooting it with poison, that's why I get all these dice. But I mishandled the poison potentially, right? And if one of the die equals that target number, let's say a 4, then I would suffer the ill effects of the attack as well. Now, I can choose not to use that and just roll 1 die on my attack. I can do that as well. It's also got Race the Hare. This is another tactic. He eludes with 2 dice. If I roll a 6, I must move to an adjacent location. You know what? I find that to be actually highly useful. Even though it says you must move, it's still a great power to have. Like, yeah, it takes a little choice away from you, but movement is important in this game because you only get 1 action, and that action might be just to move. And then for his last power, I took Feral Spirit as a bonus. Now, bonus is just something that's in play. You don't have to declare it or do it or anything. But when instructed to gain secrecy, you may instead gain 2 secrecy or gain a spark. So when do you gain secrecy? Well, you gain secrecy when you move, for example. So that's pretty good. And the Feral Spirit that I have, that the Ranger has, is just there. Now, the little backstory of the Ranger is that it says the Ranger is a capable hunter, accustomed to roaming the far reaches of the kingdom, though intimate familiarity with less traveled parts of the land, the Ranger is able to find refuge or passage where others would be lost and turn the unique features of this region to his advantage. In combat, his tactics are unconventional, but no less effective for it. So we'll see how he plays out. Now, we can get more powers. We have this deck of powers, and again, each character is asymmetric and unique. But that's the Ranger. Next up, I got lucky enough to draw one of my old favorites, the Druid. The Druid is super cool. I don't know what, I just like the way he plays. He's got some really cool powers. We'll go over those right now. You can see that he has 5 grace and a 7 stealth, or 6 stealth to start with. You can tell they're marked where your starting parts are. You can never go above the starting numbers normally. I guess you can if you get special cards that allow you to do that. But normally from movement, the reason this is highlighted that way is you can only go up to 5 secrecy from using movement. Okay, now Animal Companion is his first one. It shows that he's got like a white wolf, so I just assume it's a wolf. So his Animal Companion has a tactic. It says it fights with 2 dice, but however, if we fail to fight, it means our Animal Companion took the hit and as well, and we have to exhaust it. Exhausting means that if we rest, we can recover it. It means we turn it over, and then if we recover it, we go back. Okay. He can camouflage himself out in the wilderness. That means he eludes with 2 dice. And there's 2 things you can do when you're encountering or taking on a creature at the end of your turn. Or from an event card, you can fight or you can elude. Eluding means you're just trying to escape it. Now, in some cases, it doesn't matter which ones you do. It might matter based on the dice you have available to you, but it's a simple mechanic. So, and you're trying to hit a target number, usually between 3 and higher normally. So. And then the last one I took, I don't normally take this one, but I decided to mix it up a bit since I've played the Druid a few times, is I took one of his starting abilities of Sprite Form. Now, as an action, I can deactivate all forms and optionally activate this one, meaning you can only have 1 form at a time. When it's active, I can ignore blight effects unless the Necromancer is present, and I cannot gain any additional grace. But that is a super big power to be able to not deal with the effects of blights. I still get to use my other abilities. I can still use my tactic to fight with my Animal Companion, etc. So it's pretty good. However, he's got 5 secrets or 5 grace, so he's in pretty good position. Now, this token here that I have on here, it's simple. It's just took my turn because there's no turn order. You can take your turn order however you want, and then the Necromancer goes. So the story for the Druid. The Druid has a special connection to the natural world and can call upon allies there to aid in his task. As nature has many faces, so too the Druid can adopt a variety of shapes suited to varying purposes, allowing him to tailor his advantages to the task at hand. However, adopting one form loses the advantages of another, and thus the Druid can be weak if caught unprepared. So the Druid and the Ranger are kind of similar in that regard. They probably knew each other in the storyline. Maybe they were helping to fight against the Necromancer earlier on, and now they're in the dire situation where they have to win. But that's the Druid. Next up, we have one of the more interesting characters, I think. And when I drew him, I almost wanted to redraw him because he's kind of tough sometimes to play. But that's the Acolyte. Now, the Acolyte is interesting in that and I'll read the story in a minute, but he was actually a student of the Necromancer. He's defected, and he's come to help the heroes. So now he's got a very low grace. He's kind of a magic user, so he's not as tough as some of the other ones. He got super high secrecy starting at 7. That's because he knows the ways of the Necromancer, right? His powers that I took first are Final Rest. It's a tactic. We fight with 2 dice or 3. We can choose. But if any of the dice come up a 1, we lose a grace. He's only got 3, so we got to be careful with that. But it gives us quite a bit of flexibility with this power. The next one is Spite. He's spiteful. He hates the Necromancer. It's a bonus. We could just exhaust and spend 1 grace at any time to gain 3 sparks. And then, again, he doesn't have a lot of grace, but I got this too. Exhaust after the Necromancer movement roll to prevent him from detecting any heroes regardless of secrecy. This will come in very, very powerful. Again, he was a student of the Necromancer, so let's take a look at his story. The Acolyte is a student of the dark arts, halfway down the path of becoming a Necromancer himself. The tainted powers the Acolyte studies put him at a particular risk, especially with the flood of the undead into the kingdom. But his knowledge also places him in a unique position to undermine their attack, teetering on the edge of darkness. The Acolyte is perfectly placed to turn the tide. And that's the Acolyte. Last but not least, we're playing the Rogue. And if you're a fan of this game and you've played it a whole bunch of times, you probably start understanding why I'm a little suspect of the success of this group based on the characters I drew. You don't have to do it at random. I just choose to do that because I want to play with all the different characters. He's got a starting grace of 4, and again, super high secrecy of 7. So he's going to be very hard to find. He's a rogue, after all. So his first ability is Ambush. We can spend 1 secrecy to fight with 3 dice, otherwise he fights with 1. We got Smuggling Network. As an action, he can spend a secrecy to move to an adjacent location and take a different action. This is super powerful. That means 2 actions, basically, because one of your actions is normally to move. Also, as an action, you can exhaust to move to an adjacent location and gain 2 secrecy, up to 7. So you can go beyond your move limit of 5. And then his last thing is a tactic. It's called Vanish. It says elude with 2 dice, gain 1 secrecy if you roll 2 or more successes. So when he rolls 2, because there's ways to get like sparks. You could use a spark. You saw me mention sparks. You could use a spark to add an extra die. That's why it says 2 or more. But if you get 2 successes, like if he rolls 4 dice on his elude roll for whatever reason, using that tactic, he could gain additional secrecy. So we have the ability to spend secrecy and gain secrecy. Now the Rogue story. The Rogue is a subtle hero, uniquely able to maintain a low profile and escape notice. This secrecy, in turn, can be used by the Rogue to perform special tasks too dangerous for others to attempt. The Rogue functions well as an assassin or a saboteur, whittling away at the Necromancer's ebony grip without presenting a target for counterattack. And that is the Rogue. And those are our characters. We're going to play these 4, see how they do. They're kind of down to earth, not super high power magic or anything like the Wizard. We'll see if they fare well. Now, if you haven't played the game, there are 2 ways to win and a number of ways to lose. So let's talk about that real quick. The ways you win. We have this little track here. You can see this little token. It has a spyglass on it that is referencing clues. I can get up to 10 clues, and then I can collect a relic. That relic, that powerful holy relic, the Necromancer, once it's revealed, the Necromancer will be drawn to it and drain the secrecy of the person that's using it. But it gives us +1 to our die rolls. You can go, well, that's not very powerful, Doug. But it is, because to actually kill the Necromancer, you have to roll a 7. Now, as the game starts, we don't have the ability to roll a 7. So we can't do that. We have to roll, so in the case of having a holy relic, you have to roll a 6 and then get your +1. That's one way to win. So all we have to do is get in 1 round of combat with a relic and roll a 7, we win. Boom. The other way to win is to collect 3 relics. I've never, ever done that. You got to collect 3 of the holy relics and return them to the monastery. That makes the monastery so powerful it can cleanse the land, right? I've never won that way. I've never even tried to win that way because clues come through mysteries, and mysteries can be finicky about when they come out. We're going to definitely send the Rogue up to a place where he can get mysteries out and search, probably. We'll see. Depends on what happens when I draw and place our initial blights. But yeah, it's interesting. So how do we lose? Well, that's pretty simple. We get the darkness track here gets all the way up to the end. We lose. If we can lose characters, they can die. If the monastery gets overrun by blights, we lose. Overrun means once each of the regions has 4 That would be 4, not that. 4 or more blights in it. If another blight appears in that region, it will spill over into the monastery. If at any time the monastery has 4 blights and we have to place another one, game over. So those are the 2 ways we win. We don't win by having characters die, which is interesting because I guess there are still some the monks of the monastery, the leaders of the monastery, know that they have some heroes waiting in the wings just in case the current ones fail at their task before it's too late to do anything. Now, if we lose, it means that the necromancer, that was the necromancer's final victory over the land, and he has won. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is the final part of our setup. We're going to draw a map card. Now, one of the other interesting things about the game, before we go on, because I just really want to highlight how cool this game is to y'all, is we have the ability, you can customize. Let me show you this. I think it's in here. It might be in the compendium. I don't remember. But you have the ability to customize your game based on, there it is, on how you want to play. So like you have the simple one, which means that's a good, like if you're just starting, this is a good one to play. You also have the hunted, which means it's a lot of things that are going to just bog you down. It says everything is out to get you. You have overrun, which are some of the worst ones in the game. You have the entropy deck, the spiritual warfare deck, which just you customize the deck, and it's based on these colors, and these colors are actually on the map cards themselves. So you just have to go and find all those colors, and then classic. But I don't just do that. I do kitchen sink, which they don't show on there, which is I just let it run, man. Whatever comes our way comes our way. So every blight possible. The necromancer is at the peak of his power in my games. There's no limits to his power, right? So I'm going to give these beautiful tarot-sized map cards a quick shuffle, and we're going to draw one. Let's see, one more cut. Let's see what we get. Okay, here's what we get. So we're going to put out all of these blights. We're just going to use one card. Now, normally you don't do that. When you draw a card, you're putting out one blight, but we're going to use this to populate the, of course, less the monastery. We're going to use this to populate. Now, this is one of the base cards. You see there's no colors there, so this would be in a deck no matter what, the basic deck. Well, actually, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be in one of the customized decks. So let's go do that. We're going to go and put these out. So I will populate the board, and I'll be right back. And with the magic of filming, I've cut, and we have all the blights that we have on the board. Now, there's some problems already. We already have something that's going on. This isn't going to affect us immediately because we don't really have any items. But we do have to get rid of this decay. It's in the swamp. Red bordered cards are really bad. They usually mean they can affect anything. And there's different colors of cards that blights that tell you kind of generally what they're going to affect. And this one's really bad. Now, to destroy this blight, we have to roll a 5, meaning we can attack the blight. We have to roll a 5 or better, which means more dice. The more dice, the better, right? And basically, the decay says items have no effect. So there are artifacts and items in the game, lots of them. And while you don't see many different ones during the game, the stack of artifacts, for example, is hugely thick, right? It's just a massive deck. And we may or may not get many, if any, of those artifacts, but more likely there are also other items that are of lesser power. They're listed here, these items here. They're super useful. Like one might just allow you to move to another location on a whim and all that, but because of that, we can't use any of them, so we do have to get over to the swamp and take care of that somehow quickly. Okay, another one that's particularly bad is this one, the gate. The gate allows the necromancer to teleport, and it also every turn it increases the darkness by 1. So we have to get over there and take care of that gate. Now, if you're ever curious or wonder in detail what the things do, there's this handy dandy sheet that tells you every single one of the cards. Now, so here's the gate, right? So there's 2 of them in the game. It says the necromancer adds 1 to his movement roll only for purposes of detecting heroes. If he detects any, he teleports to the location of a random detected hero. Just bam. It's got a might of 5, and its defense, if we fail to destroy it, is +1 to the darkness track. So we got to be careful of that one. That one's got to go. The rest of them are a little less powerful. We can deal with it. This Oblivion is exhaust 1 power for each turn you're there. So when we go there, we just have to take care of it. We just won't go there right now for the moment until we feel better about taking care of it. The evil presence means in the castle that we don't elude as well. We get -1 die to a minimum of 1 die, so that may not affect somebody. We have some monsters. This means a creature in the village is being plagued by some wraiths. We do want to take care of that because unlike some of these other blights, these have if we end our turn in the village, we have to deal with these guys. We can fight them or defend against them for a 4, or elude for a 4. And then if we attack, it's 4. So they're not that powerful, but they're out there. And then I think that's it. That's the only ones I needed. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so we talked about all those. Now, another thing I like to do is we always start with our first quest. It's a variant that you can do. You start with a quest, and there's tons and tons of quests. These quests have timers on them, and I always like to start the game with 1. It is a variant, and you don't have to do this, but we're going to. So we're going to pull 1, and we'll see where it goes. What's our first quest? Night Terrors. It only takes 1 success, and then here's how you create that success. It'll be out there for 4 turns. Now this is where some of the bookkeeping of the game gets a little tough. Sometimes you have to make sure you're putting your time markers out at Necromancer's turn, etc., to track how long these quests are around. But as an action, we can roll a die, and for each we get 1 for each die that rolls a 3+. Super simple. We just need 1 to complete it. If we solve it, we get a Soothing Lyre, which has some abilities. I think it refreshes powers. And then if it expires, each hero draws an event. That's bad. It says an unseen menace is stalking the townsfolk under the cover of night. Unravel its secret and let the good people rest easy. So the next thing we're going to do is find out where these Night Terrors actually are. And to do that, we're going to roll a die. And you see there's all these numbers on the board, right? There's, especially coming from the village, 1, 4, 5, 2, and 3. So we're going to roll and see a 4. So it is going to go to up here. Oh, the place I didn't want to go to is the... no, that's 1. Sorry, 4 is over here, the castle. That's not bad for us. It's going to go on to the castle. Now, it doesn't have any time on it yet, so I'm not going to put any time markers on it. But that is where it's at. And now we can officially get going. We're ready to start moving. Now, normally on your turn, if you're outside of the monastery, the first thing you're going to do on your turn is draw an event card. For some reason, because you don't draw an event card when you first leave the monastery or when you're in the monastery, sometimes it's easy to forget to draw an event card on the next turn. I'll try and remember to not make that mistake. But we are going to get started. I think I will start our turn with the druid, because he's going to have a very, very simple turn. Remember, we only get 1 action, right? So it's super simple. For the druid, he's going to stay at the monastery this 1 turn. He's going to activate this as an action. So he's going to activate this so he can ignore the effects of blights. Then next turn, he'll head toward the castle and try and take care of that, or maybe go to the mountains and pass through there, so he doesn't have to worry about the effects of blight. And to note that you have an active power, you just take one of these little active tokens, and it says active and inactive on each side, and you just put it on the card. Now I know that that is active, and that is, unfortunately, the druid's entire turn. He just sit there and cast a spell to turn himself into a sprite, and his little dog Toto too, and then he'll move. But that's it. That's all he gets to do. Now, because he's in the monastery, he didn't have to draw an event card, and he's safe. He doesn't have to worry about blights or anything like that. He's still there. I think next up we will go to the... I think we'll go to the ranger, or maybe not. Maybe I think we're going to go with the rogue. And what we're going to do with the rogue is, I like his super cool smuggling network ability, spend a secrecy to move to an adjacent location and take another action. I want to get rid of that gate. So he's going to go there, and then he's going to spend 2 secrecy this turn, but he's going to gain 1 when he moves, so it's okay. Well, actually, I don't think he will, because he doesn't actually move. He's taking an action. But it says to move. Normally when you move, you gain a secrecy. I don't think that's fair, though. So anyway, we're going to drop his secrecy to 6. He's going to move to here. And then that was his using his Smuggler's Network action. But remember, that gives him a free different action. So he can't do the Smuggler's Network over and over again, but we're not going to do that anyway. We're going to do this. We're going to spend 1 secrecy to ambush the evil minor necromancers that are keeping this gate open for the necromancer. That's going to give us 3 dice to roll. So let's get the dice bowl out and roll some dice and see if we can destroy this gate. Okay, now, one of the things of point of interest here is when you attack a gate, you also lose a secrecy. So our rogue is going to lose 3 secrecy this turn, but hopefully we get lucky. We roll a 5 or better. Oh man, I didn't think we did, but we did. We rolled a 5. So that means we destroyed our first blight, just bam, just like that. Now you think that that's cool and you get a reward, but you don't. You just lose a secrecy. As I said, this game can be pretty brutal. But again, going back to my Chessex trays, I just get to drop that in with the other gate, and I don't have to worry about keeping track of them or anything like that. Very, very good start for the rogue. And then next turn, he will probably use his smuggler's network to exhaust it and just to move and gain 2 secrecy. Get him back up in the secrecy. Remember, he can go up to 7 that way. It's pretty good. Then you'll have to rest or something to get that card back. But that is going to be the rogue's turn. Now remember, we're not drawing event cards because they're coming out of the monastery. Okay, next up, I think we'll go with the Acolyte. I think it's this Oblivion. We got to get over to this Decay too. We already got things we got to do. This Oblivion is bad because if he goes there, he's going to have to exhaust a power. So I don't think he's going to go there. He can't gain any secrecy from moving because he's over 5 already. But I could just, as a bonus, exhaust this to get 3 sparks. That's the whole point of it, right? But I have to spend a grace to do it. So he could spend a little time in the monastery, maybe building up some power. Let's do that. We're gonna blow that out right there. That's gonna lower his grace down to 2, which means he sacrificed a bit of his life, but he gains 3 sparks of courage, encouragement, whatever you want to call them. And these 3 sparks allow him to roll extra dice when he needs to. I think that's super powerful. And then maybe next turn he'll just rest there, get his grace back, and then head out. But that's his turn. You can see how quickly this goes. Right? And then last but not least, we have the Ranger. I think the Ranger is going to make a quick... he's going to go help the village out on his way over to getting the Decay. So I think that for his action... Now he's already his max secrecy, so he... with his feral spirit, says we have this bonus when instructed to gain secrecy, because he's not going to be able to gain any secrecy, so he can't get that, but he can do that. So since he can't gain any, he's going to move here as his action, and because he has that bonus, he too will get a spark. That's going to give an extra die there, and that's his turn. But now he has to face down the wraiths, which means we're going to either need to elude, and it's going to be 2 grace if we fail. They're pretty nasty. Elude or fight them. I think he's got... I think we're going to do his Race the Hare ability, which is a tactic, means you can just use it. Elude with 2 dice. If you roll a 6, you must move to an adjacent location. Like I said, I really like that ability. I think we're going to do that. Let's get the dice bowl. Okay, come on, Mr. Ranger. We need to roll a what? We need to roll a 4 elude. Here, let's see if we can do it. Oh, I rolled a 5 and a 4, but I didn't roll a 6, so we're not forced to move. But we did manage to elude the wraiths. Now, what that means for him is that like he's ducking and weaving, maybe outside, lurking in the woods outside the village, hiding there, or maybe some of the villagers are sheltering him and keeping him safe. He evaded them. And that is the end of the Ranger's turn. Now, however, some bad stuff comes. Now, if you ever want to know what the turn order is, you can take one of the other characters you're not playing with and flip it over, and it tells you your turn. So we've done this. Now, remember, we would normally draw an event, but we didn't. We took our actions, and then we did this. Okay. Oh, and if you're in the monastery getting a secrecy, I could have done that with the Acolyte, but and the Druid, because they both stayed there, but they're already at their max. Okay, so and here's the abilities that you get. Like I said, we traveled, we moved, we didn't hide, we attacked. You saw that. We haven't searched yet. We will. It's down in the mountains with the rogue. We can pray at the monastery, roll 2 dice for each 3. We get a grace back. That's what I was saying. Maybe the Acolyte might stay there and do that. We can retrieve a relic. We don't have any ability to do that yet. We can take a card action, and we can meditate to gain a spark. Those are the basic abilities, but it doesn't tell you what the Necromancer's turn is. However, the reference card does. So, the Necromancer is a 7 and a 6 to elude, and if we fail, we lose a grace. You lose a secrecy when you're in his presence, but during his turn, we're going to do the darkness. So the first thing that's going to happen is this little track is going to go up by 1. We've done that. Now, I'm not going to do it in this detail every time. I'm just doing it because I'm assuming some people who are watching may not have ever played this game. We're going to add 1 time marker to each quest. Well, we do, in fact, have a quest. There's the time marker going up on the Night Terrors. We've got to get there and solve that. That may be where, since we don't have any items yet, that may be where the Ranger goes next. We'll see. I thought he might stay there and take care of the wraiths. I'm not sure. It wouldn't be a bad idea to go up and get rid of... The evil presence isn't that big of a deal. We want to get that Night Terrors done, though. Okay, now we're going to roll for the movement of the Necromancer. I'll just roll this on the board. We're okay. We don't have a lot of stuff out yet. And we're going to compare it to the secrecy of our hero. So the only one he might detect is the rogue, who's at a 4 right now. In fact, he does. So So when you roll that, it says detect heroes with lower than the result. So he did not detect the rogue. Got to remember that rule always. But where does he go when he rolls a 4? He stays right. He stays put. So this is one of the problems with the ruins, is that because he stays put, he's going to drop another blight right in the ruins there. How we determine that is we draw a map card and we say ruins. It's going to be revenants. So he's beefing up his stuff in the ruins. He's got this flux cage, which actually does terrible things. We lose a grace on entering, I believe. Yeah, I'll lose a secrecy when entering, so it's not that bad. But we lose a secrecy. In other words, it detects us when we go through the flux. And now we have revenants stalking the ruins. Revenants of the dead people from whatever civilization the ruins might have been. They're pretty tough. Defend 5, elude 4. They only do 1 damage, but there are 5 to destroy as well. And they are right here. By the way, I know these are small, but the artwork on them is super cool. And so now we have 2 blights there. And that is where the Necromancer's turn ends. Pretty straightforward, right? And because we got this one gone, we don't have to worry about him teleporting anywhere. I think that was a very important factor for us there. And with that, I am going to end this episode. Because I did a lot of explanation, so I thought we'd just get started. And in the next episode, I'll probably take multiple turns. So we got started. I told you a bit about setup. We introduced our characters, and we got going. We're out in the world. And a couple of heroes are out taking risks, while a couple of others are preparing in the monastery to go forth and do some serious damage to the Necromancer. It's great that we can move the Druid around safely without him having to deal with the problems of blights while he's in his sprite form. Now, keep in mind, again, though, if he can't change forms, luckily we don't have any other forms right now, so it's okay. But he also can't gain any grace. So if he starts losing grace, he'll have to deactivate that form. But that said, I hope you enjoy this. Darkest Night is absolutely one of my all-time favorite games that will never leave my collection, and I love getting an excuse to play it. So thank you for letting me play this for you. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them. And also, if you want to name the characters, I just call them by what they are, but it's kind of fun to put names to them. Please send me some name suggestions for each of these characters. All right, we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.